And
that's the end of the good list.
Oh. Darn. So, I want to talk about positive things, but alas.
Okay, so there's an anime called Code Geass.
Oh.
Okay, so there are things I like about Code Geass, and there are a lot of things that I don't like, particularly once you get into season 2.
Heck, even the ending of season 1.
Even the ending of, like, the last few parts of season 1 were pretty bad, but there are two deaths in it that are some of the worst written deaths I had ever seen in my life.
I would say 3, but...
Well, yeah, there are multiple bad deaths in there, but the 2 that really stick out to me, the first one was Euphemia.
Well, the 3 deaths, ironically, are really telling of the show's morals, and I don't think the writers intended this. 3 people who are good people, and they are simply punished because they are good people. With Euphemia and Lelouch, it's simply because they wanted to make the world a better place. With Shirley, it's simply she's a good girl with a good heart who happened to be at the really wrong place at the wrong time, who happened to say the wrong thing to get some psychopath
to stab,
some convoluted reason to kill her. Why?
It doesn't make sense.
So we can create angst. I'm sorry, you're a show about war and bad things happening, and with how much, like, Lelouch kept getting screwed over, you didn't even really need death to keep that angst train
No! The whole show is a Diablos Ex Machina.
Like, Lelouch's life was already a spiral of misery and woe. Like, you didn't have to add death of people that mattered to him on top of that, and then kill him off at the very end.
Yeah, but like...
because of happy endings, who cares? Except for, characters who didn't deserve a happy ending get one.
Yeah. It's like all the nicest... And this is so weird because this is going to come up later when I talk about RWBY. It's like you have these characters who are absolutely pure and nice, and they're killed off for no reason other than probably because it's so ironic that the character who didn't deserve to die, died. And
the most ridiculous convoluted ways, because Euphemia's death, like Shirley,
that was so convoluted.
It's so both of their deaths are convoluted. The story had to bend itself backwards like a pretzel just to get these girls to die.
Yeah, because with Euphemia, Euphemia is Lelouch's half sister because their dad had like 108 wives.
Well, you know, he's royalty, and I guess like royalty, he takes many, many wives and had many, many, many children.
He took after Zeus. He was sticking his dick in everything. But okay, he had all these children, and for Lelouch, he hated a lot of his siblings, but Euphemia and her older sister Cordelia, along with his sister, not only were the ones that he actually cared about the most.
He also liked Schneisel and Clovis as children, but the ones that he loved the most was Euphemia and Nonnally.
Yeah.
And
Euphemia was like a sister to him anyway.
Well, and it makes sense because Euphemia and Nonnally are pretty much a lot alike.
Yeah.
So it makes sense why Lelouch would be so close to her because she's pretty much an older version of his little sister.
Yeah. So it's very clear that they got along really well. So when she came back into his life again, it's very clear that he didn't want to fight her at all. Like he'd fight a lot of his other people, but she was someone he didn't want to. So
because she's one of the few people in that entire messed up royal family he knew was not corrupt.
She was genuinely good. So
she genuinely wanted to do good things. And he kind of felt sorry for her because he knew this corrupt system would just chew her up and spit her out because she's such a good-hearted person.
Right.
But Euphemia didn't care about that. She knew.
Yeah, she knows that this is a bad world and she wants to use her power to do good things.
Well, and she knew she was practically powerless. Compared to her father, she was a gnat. But she didn't care. That didn't stop her from wanting to at least try. I mean, her older sister kept warning her, like, you do this bad thing will happen. You do this.
You're not going to get support. You're going to have everyone fighting you.
You do this. The family will, like for all, our father could even disown you, and there goes all your power and your support because of then, this power that gives you the ability to do this good thing. But Euphemia's like, that very well would happen, but that's not going to stop me from trying to at least do the right thing. I'm not going to be bullied into stopping doing the right thing.
Right, and this is one of the reasons why her relationship with Suzaku is so great.
Because it was the only time when Suzaku was a bearable character.
Right, because, Suzaku is Japanese, and there was such a severe racism against the Japanese by the Britannian government. And then here you have this Britannian princess who fell in love with Suzaku, and they had
she genuinely wanted his help to help build a better nation.
Right, and that's when she came up with I don't remember the exact name for it. But
The Special Administrative Zone.
Yes, it's so that they can have Japanese people live there and not be discriminated against. Sure, it's not really going to fix everything.
It's a band-aid on the big gaping issue.
But
the thing is Euphemia was trying.
And it's the most
she
that
was
anyone...
doing more than anybody ever could in that whole messed up family.
Yeah, and it's most that Britannian has ever done for the Japanese people since they conquered Japan.
And Lelouch knew that he's working for a terrorist organization. There's no way he could oppose this, even though Lelouch knew in the long run it wasn't going to work. The Emperor would crush it before it ever had a chance to succeed. But the thing is statistically speaking, strategically speaking, there's no way he could work around this that would make him and his organization look bad. Like, essentially, she ironically...
backed him into a corner.
She essentially put him in check without even realizing it, because he knew the only way to help them and get public support, because she was getting the support of the people that he claims that he's supposed to be a champion of.
So that's why it was a great moment when Zero met with Euphemia in private and took his helmet off. He's like, okay, I'm Lelouch. So, and then they were talking out, and he's just like, you won. Yeah, you've beaten me, and ironically, you did it.
And she's just like, I'm not even trying to win. And he's just like, but there's no way he could oppose her without either ruining her reputation or his reputation, and that's something he knew he couldn't do, because then he would never do that to his sister.
No.
And there's more at stake here. So he decided, I'm going to support you. And then some stupid convoluted thing, his Geass happened to activate. And he just happens to say, I have this power that could make you do whatever I say. Like, I could tell you, say, kill all the Japanese people and you'll do it.
And then his Geass activates at exact moment.
When he says that, I'm like, oh, well, isn't that just a fancy little coinky-dink?
And then she goes and starts murdering Japanese people.
And telling all her soldiers to murder the Japanese people. And now he has no choice but to murder his sister.
And then forever she's known as a massacre. She initiated a massacre. She's a bloodthirsty psychopath. So her reputation was forever tarnished.
And there went any potential Suzaku has a good character, because after that he became just the most one of the most not the most. There's others that are more unbearable than him. One of the most unbearable characters in that show.
Yeah, and it was a completely contrived scenario. And I'm like, okay, you could have had this work, because in the long run, it would have either been shut down, or her abilities to do anything would have been so minimized, it would have been useless.
Wouldn't have that been more interesting if the Emperor shut her program down, disowned her, so her only source of refuge was for her to run away and join Lelouch in part of his rebellion?
The Black Knights.
And they could have used that. Lelouch could have been the princess was disowned and she's going to help the Japanese people, and she could have been a face of, the Black Knights, alongside Zero. They could have capitalized on it. There's other things you could do with her character.
You could really drive a hard split, because so many people would have loved Euphemia, even in the Britannian side.
And imagine what that would do to Cordelia's character if she had to choose, if Euphemia joined the Black Knights.
She had to choose between loyalty to her father and
loyalty to her little sister. That could create some genuine, awesome conflict.
But no, they had to go for the simplest thing. Okay.
The easiest, solution.
Yeah, we had to get rid of Euphemia just so that Lelouch couldn't have a single happy thing happen.
Speaking of that, Shirley's is another really convoluted one.
Okay, so in the second season,
she just so happens to say the one thing that triggers Rollo.
Okay. So in the second season, they have all this convoluted stuff going on where Rollo is pretending to be Lelouch's little brother, but
he's a tyke bomb, for hire.
He was a child assassin for the government.
They decided to hire him to pose as Lelouch's brother to keep him in line because of his memories were erased.
So he ends up being a yandere little brother. Which is
really annoying, and what wasted potential also of Rollo's character, because you really could have set up a really interesting character to him having a steadfast loyalty to Lelouch because if he wants to know what it's like, because that's actually a child assassin. He never had a childhood, and then you could have his loyalties because he felt like he was starting to gain a childhood.
Well, because Lelouch felt like he treated him like an actual sibling, so he actually liked being his brother,
like an actual human being. And then you could set this up what if instead then he wants Lelouch to be reunited with Natalie, not out of fear of replacement, because he wants nothing more than Lelouch to be happy, and then maybe all of us could be a family together.
Yeah, but no,
he wants to make him crazy.
He wants to kill everyone around Lelouch so that he'll be his little,
Natalie.
Yeah, because he'll be his little brother, and it's it makes no sense. And what's really weird is that before this episode where they killed her, they had the whole Cupid, the little goofy Cupid festival where Lelouch and Shirley kind of get together. I mean, Shirley. I really like the moment with Shirley where she wins the game, but she straight up tells Lelouch she's not going to force him to do it because she understands. Okay, I know you may not return my feelings. You may not.
Well, that's not fair.
Yeah, it's not fair to force you into this. And so I was like, I really love that.
Because it shows what a good character. Like, I don't ship it at all, but I like Shirley. She's a good person.
Right.
And she does not deserve this.
So but then they kind of had a nice little thing going. And then during this whole situation and even there's a part where she was remembering things and she almost committed suicide, but Lelouch and Suzaku saved her because she was remembering all of the stuff that happened.
Another thing that just occurred to me, Rollo not only spent time with Lelouch, he spent time with the student council, which means he would have spent time with Shirley. You're telling me he felt no remorse killing her? Like why not show it up? Like the reason also why that he's with Lelouch and all of them is he's starting to feel like he has a place to belong, like with the student council. So, to have him snap and kill Shirley? Somebody he's technically supposed to befriend? I don't know, it just feels like there's a lot of wasted potential and not a lot of thought was put on in there. Like, if you're going to kill her off, I don't know, maybe less convoluted? We already had to swallow that with Euphemia, and it really doesn't help that Shirley and Euphemia have a lot in common in personality.
Yeah, and both of them are really sweet and really kind, and then both of them get the most brutal murders in the entire show. Simply
because they
would hurt Lelouch.
They committed the crime of, oh, well, there's somebody that Lelouch cares about.
Right. And I was like, and what's so stupid is that, after all the stuff that Shirley went through, her father died because of stuff that Lelouch ended up doing.
Her memories were erased.
Twice!
Yes.
Her memories were erased twice.
Well, granted, the first time was because of Mao freaking traumatized her, and Lelouch erased her memory so that way she'd be, ignorance is bliss, as they say.
Right, but then she ended up remembering, and then the Emperor
messed her memories again.
And then she remembered again. And
everything.
Yeah, and all the stuff because she knew who Lelouch, she knew that he was Zero, and she found out everything, and she realized this all again. But in the second season, once she kind of came to terms with a lot of this, she was like, I want to help Lelouch. I want to be there for him.
I get it. She's a normal schoolgirl. She's out of her element. But why couldn't she, I don't know, be there, supporting...
If she was there in the Black Knights just providing, support.
Aid or something like that. Maybe, she learns to become a nurse. So when people come back from their fights, they're surely there, patching people up.
Right.
Because she's not a fighter. I understand that.
But she wanted to do something, and she just coincidentally runs into Rollo.
Who just so happens to be in a mood where he's really crazy.
Well, and she's like, I want to go help Lelouch. I want to help him find Nunnally. And then immediately Rollo's like,
crazy!
Stabby time! And he stabs her, and then Lelouch finds her. It's it really pisses me off.
Shock value.
Yeah, her death was shock value. And she actually heard, some of the things she says were kind of nice in her dying scene, but it's stupid that they wasted this all in a stupid scene, because when she's dying, and Lelouch is trying to use his Geass to save her, but he can't do anything. It's just a mind control thing. And she's saying that no matter how many times she forgets him, no matter how many times her memory is destroyed about him, she'll always fall in love with him. And I'm like, these great lines. And then she dies, and that's it. And then Lelouch goes off the deep end.
Because, Geass, so much wasted potential.
And it's like, okay, well, then why did she have to die at all? It's like, they couldn't let anything...
Well, heck, even the writer said they never intended for Shirley to be, a legit love interest for him. She's just, her love was going to be unrequited. Well, if that's the case, why did she have to die? Why did you have to kill off one of his good friends that genuinely made his life bearable, that life meaningful to him? Why couldn't she just meet some nice guy, move on, have a happy little life, they move on and live in some, they go move on to the country and live in Europe, happily ever after? Because honestly, Shirley deserves happiness. She's a good girl. She's a nice girl.
But then they treat her like trash.
I'm honestly surprised they didn't kill off Millie and Ribbles while they were at it.
Yeah.
I mean, heck, why don't you go kill off not only in Colin and C2 while you're at it too, just let's kill all of Lelouch's support structure while we're at it.
Yeah. It's it's like, and they were so focused on trying to ruin Lelouch's life. It's like, his life is already...
His life is hell!
His life has been hell since he was a kid, because he had to live as a refugee.
And he's literally like the reverse Light Yagami. Lelouch is so ridiculously smart, but instead the plot bends itself backwards so that way Lelouch can never win.
Yeah, Light Yagami had everything handed to him by the author. Literally, he had a cakewalk.
But the writers just kept giving Lelouch the middle finger.
And this is why I would say every time Lelouch won, it felt like a legitimate victory.
He earned it because of the writers were doing everything to put him down. And it's almost like Lelouch is just like, no!
Yeah, so it's like, and so just to make him suffer more for these deaths, it's like, because if Euphemia and Shirley were still alive, well, frankly, not a whole lot would really change.
No, they probably would have ended up joining the Black Knights and they'd aid Lelouch in their cause.
And Suzaku would
Well, heck, that would have been interesting conflict for Suzaku because he was all about, I must change the system within. Well, what if his girlfriend and as the knight, the woman he's told he's supposed to, follow to the ends of the earth, decides to fact the Britannian Empire and go join the Black Knights? There's conflict there.
You actually have a great way to give Suzaku a season 2 motivation.
And good character development, but nah.
No. And it's like, and it's one of those things where it's like, it's obvious that we were saying, they were chasing the short term. What would make Lelouch most upset at this moment? Oh, let's kill her off.
Let's make the audience sad now.
Yeah, and it's like, and then of course you were talking about characters like Ogi, who ended up becoming traitorous snakes, get literally the best ending, being Prime Minister of Japan with his beautiful hot wife. And it's like,
he didn't deserve it. He didn't earn it. His character just 160, for a really good character to one of the worst characters ever.
Yeah, and he gets rewarded the most of it. And all the other Black Knights, basically, they just stand by doing nothing because even though they had been fighting for years to help Japan, Ogi's the one who deserves the true great happy ending.
Ugh.
And it's like, and it's totally twisted. And it's like, and I can't be satisfied by the ending because it's like, and even if
because you just pissed on all these good characters and especially Lelouch, and Lelouch has to die, but isn't the world a better place? No,
it's really not.
Gosh, jeez, can you at least throw Lelouch a bone and let him at least live?
Couldn't he at least be happy?
And live the rest of his life with his little sister?
Yeah, couldn't he at least just be happy with Nunnally at the end of it's like...
No.
There's a reason why there were so many Lelouch survived theories at the end.
Oh gosh, and there's so many different fanfics. No matter who you ship Lelouch with, I find it funny, either the Shirley, the Colin, or the C2 shippers, they always have these different ways, and every one of them are granted, they'll retcon Shirley's death and then Lelouch's death, or they'll have time travel, or I don't know, a Groundhog Day sort of thing, or Lelouch somehow became immortal like C2. They're always just nope, we're changing that, then none of that noise, F that. And I'm just I'm right there with you guys.
Yeah.
F that noise.
Yeah, it's and ultimately, from a writer's thing that, I know a lot of writers think is that, oh, this will be an interesting thing to do in the story. But they don't understand what this would affect people from the audience.
Consequences. Your choices have
When
consequences.
will you understand that your actions have consequences?
Come on, writers. Think long term. Think consequences.
And think about your audience. And this is something that really pisses me off, is that so many authors don't care what their audience thinks. Because, alright, there's a story that I was writing.
They want to get that short-term gut punch.
Yeah. There was a story, there have been times that I'm writing, and there's this one story in particular that I was writing, and there was a character that was going to die. And he was wheelchair bound and in a situation where they were being attacked. Well, okay, it makes sense that he would be one that dies, but when I was looking at the whole story, and I was looking, his death, despite it being sad in the moment, it didn't affect anything. And honestly, considering I really liked writing his character, he was a really likable character, it's his death would probably really upset anyone who was actually the audience for the story. And then what does that even accomplish? Well, nothing. It's there was another character that was probably more similar to this, who was also a love interest to another primary character, and she was going to die. But then I was realizing, wait a minute, this character here has already suffered so much, and this character is actually really nice. What's the point of killing her off, except for one scene of, oh, he's really sad. Okay, he's already sad because he's lost plenty of other people in his life. So I'm okay, why would I be doing that? So I changed it. I didn't kill them off, and I gave them stuff to do afterwards. It's yeah, you have to change the story sometimes.
And it's okay. Sometimes careful consideration can lead to better results, like how they did with Bob and Stranger Things.
Yeah.
Like, we got so much more out of Bob's character that we wouldn't have had if they decided to do their earlier plans.
Yeah. And, that's the thing is that, even though if I'm harsh on deaths, I was going to write some deaths that would have been cheap, stupid, and not very effective.
And it's okay to admit whenever you did something wrong. Josh Whedon looked back on some of the things he did in Buffy, like with some character deaths, and he's just like, yeah, that actually wasn't very well done. That wasn't very well handled. That's just something that other people did at the time, shock deaths and stuff like that. And sadly, people still do to this day. And he's like, and honestly, he's like, I can't remember where I read some more, but I read some more that basically, like, he regretted doing that. He regretted killing off Tara and a couple other characters. And I'm like, yeah, because that was dumb.
Yeah,
but you know what? At least he was man enough to admit it. The man is a scumbag cheater, but at least he's man enough to admit when he did something wrong with his writing. Well, now, if only he'd be man enough to admit whenever he shouldn't be a feminist also, and then cheat his wife on the same breath.
But it's like, and this is the thing. It's like, and if you have an idea, if we kill off this character, okay, I'm not saying you're a terrible person if you think that, but just think things through. It's okay. It's okay. I've had plenty of times when
I've had to rewrite things. You don't, everything, your first draft isn't going to be your final draft.
Right. This is why redrafts are important.
Ryan Johnson.
Yeah, this is why redrafts are so important. It's like, there's sometimes when I come up with a story and I end up changing a lot of it by the time I start getting a few.
I text him ideas, and I 2 or 3 times I've changed around one of my fanfics, like how I originally started it, and then I'm just like, I decided to change the beginning again. This is actually what happens. I decided to retcon my original draft thing. This is actually what I'm gonna do.
Yeah, because I know sometimes you would send me the parts of your Ace Attorney fic that you're coming up with ideas for, and then by the time you actually publish a chapter, things are different because
so much
you had
different.
changed because you needed to make things better.
Because, sometimes when you're mapping things out, suddenly you realize, wait a minute, this isn't going to work. And it's like, it's okay. I'm not perfect. Nope. He's not perfect. Nobody's perfect.
And it's just like, this is why when I say that you need to focus on your story and ironing out the details and plugging plot holes and making sure that the story is satisfying.
And you'll feel so much better for it.
Right. And this is why
I feel so much better for it.
Right. You're going to end up with a better story and one that people are going to love more if you put in the effort. And this is why you get some of these writers who don't put in that effort. And then you end up with mediocre or even terrible stories. And
mediocre and terrible deaths.
Yeah, and then they use deaths as cheap plot devices. And
Speaking of death as cheap plot devices, what's next on our list?
RWBY.
Whenever he said terrible deaths, you want to know? You want to know when he mentioned that topic? You want to know who was first in my mind? Pyrrha! And I didn't even watch past season 2, but whenever I read what happened, all the stuff that happened in season 2, I was like, F that noise, and I just stopped watching RWBY.
Okay. So
he sadly endured it.
I endured all the way through volume 4 because it was like you can't criticize it if you don't watch it. So I watched it and criticized it. Well, if you're going to be critical, then why are you even watching the show?
It's like, well, you know what? F that noise. See you later.
And I stopped watching. I kept up with it just so that I can criticize just how bad the show gets.
It's like, well, maybe people don't seem to realize this thing, but maybe critiques happen is because we care.
And this is the thing, I really liked volume 1 and 2 of RWBY. I love them. Like, totally. It's like, but then after that, it's bad. And I'm not saying it's bad because I hate RWBY.
Hey, you know who edits my Ace Attorney fanfic?
Yeah.
You know who will sometimes text me messages, like, whenever he's reading through a sentence, and he'll be like, this makes absolutely no sense. What are you trying to say here?
Yeah.
I'm not offended that he's being that blunt with me. And then I'll read over the sentence and I'll be like, ooh, I might have forgotten a couple of things. And then I'll be like, or I'll describe something really wrong because I'll have something in my head and I'm having a hard time describing it. And then I'll try to describe it to him in a different way. And then he'll be like, why didn't you just describe it that way? And I'm like, that's a good point. Let's do that.
Yeah, so then I'll change the stuff and when I'm editing, it's just like, It's
like communication, though. It's okay. Criticism is necessary.
Yeah.
Stories are better for it. One of my other friends, like whenever she was reading one of my stories for my other fanfic, she said she pointed something out because if she worked in the food industry and I got it wrong, and I was just like, oh, whoops, I'll refix that chapter and I'll make sure to include that detail in. Thank you for letting me know. What's so wrong about correcting? I'm not offended. It's called helping.
Yeah, and even in a lot, if criticism sounds mean, you don't have to understand that just because someone sounds mean, or even if someone is outright being mean and calling you an idiot, that doesn't mean that the criticism is automatically bad. And this is one of the big problems with Miles Luna, is that he got...
I get some people can be hyperbolic in their criticism.
Yeah.
But you shouldn't overlook legit good criticisms, you know, the more common civil ones that are kind of, when you lump them all together...
Yeah,
like that's really disingenuous.
That's the problem. Is like when Miles would do that, he would call anyone a mother effer if they criticize his writing. You don't know anything about writing. It's like, okay, well, a lot of people
you don't.
Yeah, no, you don't. It's like, but when people are giving the criticisms, when I say that it was stupid to kill Pyrrha off, and I say that how she died was terrible, I'm not saying that because. Oh, well,
You're a horrible, terrible person because you killed off a character that doesn't even exist in real life.
No, it's like when I say that, it's like, okay, if you wanted to have this storyline, you shouldn't have killed them off. It's like, because then it makes...
or at least not in that way.
Yeah, because, alright, so Pyrrha as a character started getting some character development in Volume 2. Near the end, during the dance arc, we started getting a little bit more insight to her character. As a big, huge celebrity, she was always put on a pedestal. Everyone looked at her as like a goddess amongst ants. And she hated it. She was never able to actually form friendships or relationships because no one saw her as a person. And this is why she really liked John, is that he didn't treat her like he didn't treat her like a celebrity. She was just another person to him. And this is why she liked that. This is why she liked being friends with Ruby and Team Juniper. Because they treated her like people. Like, they treated her like a person. So then we start to get that in Volume 2, which is nice because that's setting up, okay, so maybe we're going to see more of how her celebrity life really gets in the way. And I thought we'd see more of that. Then come Volume 3.
And maybe she gives that up.
Yeah, well, maybe she gives it up. Maybe it gets in the way. Maybe she has to do interviews and photo shoots during the season. Okay, that'd be interesting because we never really got to see how it affected her much. Just she would say it. Then Volume 3 comes in and it's like, we're just going to throw all of that out.
Well, and her budding, like, romance with John.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because here's the thing. When you're building up this relationship, it's not satisfying for the audience to have these characters spend seasons getting together only to have one of them die. It's stupid. And I mentioned this before. It's one of those tricks that authors will use to try to make a death more emotional.
And what makes it even dumber, he wasn't even there when she died.
No, it's like she was...
It's like, if it's supposed to be emotional because of the love of his life is dead, then why wouldn't you allow him that moment to be present to see her final moments? Ruby is there with her for her final moments, and her and Ruby didn't even talk to each other a whole lot.
Yeah, they talked to each other once in Volume 1, when she turns and says, my semblance is polarity, and I can control metal. And then Ruby's like, that's cool. That's the extent. And they try to make it like Pyrrha was so close to Ruby, and it was
like,
a big... Like,
no.
It's like, in the original draft of that scene, Jean was supposed to be there in that scene. And then they changed it for some reason.
Dumb reason.
A lot of things, like I read Shane's letter, a lot of things were changed that don't make any sense. But killing Pyrrha off, period, is bad because
it is bad, but at the very least, you shouldn't have robbed that from Jean.
Yeah.
That should be a moment between him and Pyrrha because of if you're gonna do that stupid thing, keep him there because that's who developed the strongest relationship with her. Heck, you have Ren and Nora there too, because that's her teammates.
Yeah, they barely even contribute to anything going on.
Let them have that moment. Like, if you have to kill her off, then, I don't know, maybe have her sacrifice her life to save her teammates and have some final parting words to Jean. Try to make it meaningful.
Yeah, and here's the thing with, one of the biggest problems with Volume 3 is that they introduced the Maidens. The Maidens were a terrible idea. Yeah. They never should have done this. Because it's like, hey guys, did you know magic exists? And I'm like, oh no, in a world where we can use dust to create thunder and lightning and fire and ice.
And scythes can also be guns.
Yeah, and in a world where we have...
Nunchucks.
Yeah, in a world where we have semblances that allow people to create sunlight clones, move at the speed of sound, and even...
Monsters.
And even resurrect dead monsters. It's like, oh no, you're telling me that
half
magic...
human, half animal people.
You're telling me that magic exists? Gee whiz! And it's like, the maiden's idea, it's like... And the way that they crowbarred Pyrrha into this story, they only did this. They literally designed the entire story to kill Pyrrha off. That's all it focused. RWBY, the actual main character of the show, does nothing in Volume 3. The only thing she does is blow up her eyes in the end of the season.
Because Pyrrha died, even though that Pyrrha's not somebody she was that close to. If you're supposed to have her have that gut punch reaction,
if it
should have been somebody that was close to her.
If it was someone like Jean, like she was friends with Jean. If Jean died, then I can understand that reaction.
What, or heck, like if her Uncle Crow got hurt or something like that, like she would have that reaction. If she was present and she saw Yang on the ground with half of her arm gone, I could see her blowing up like that.
Yeah, but it's like they RWBY, and this is something I talked about in my rewrite video, and I was sort of bringing up some ideas. It's like RWBY, like especially in Volume 4 when they established that silver eyes are the weakness of the maidens. Okay, they want to fight Cinder, who they claim in Volume 3 has some maiden powers. Why isn't RWBY there? Why isn't RWBY with her also powerful silver eyes there to fight against someone with maiden powers? Why isn't she? Why didn't they bring in more than... They literally only brought in Jean to help fight against Cinder in the big the Chamber of Secrets is what I call it.
There's a lot.
There's so many
with RWBY, but the deaths.
It's like, this is stupid. It's like in the way they killed her, they contrived it. And then even after all of this has gone down, what happens? Pyrrha runs off. She sends Jean flying in a locker, runs off on her own in a fight that everyone will admit she had no chance of winning. Even Osmond, one of the most powerful huntsmen in the entire country, in the kingdom, couldn't beat Cinder. And then what
good is she supposed to do?
And a lot of people have tried to propose this idea of, well, maybe she wanted to kill herself.
Why?
It's like, why? It's like maybe she was
Stop trying to write the story for them.
Yeah, it's like, okay, well, maybe she believed in destiny, that it was her destiny. Okay, she starts talking about destiny in Volume 3. Okay, but why would she think it's her destiny to go and die?
That makes no sense.
It's like, and here's the thing, here's what really pisses me off, is that they put her on a pedestal that whole season. Oh, she's the great Pyrrha, she's the only one who can become a maiden. And there's not a single commentary. Some people will say, they're doing this on purpose. No, they're not. They just put her on a pedestal. They had Crow literally say that Team Juniper is worth nothing without Pyrrha.
Which makes no sense. If anything, Nora was the one carrying them.
Nora's the one. She's one of the strongest characters. She one-hit KO'd an entire enemy team in the Vital Festival. But no, Pyrrha's the number one because they designated her as the oh-so-powerful one. But there's not a
It's just because she's a celebrity.
It's just because she's a celebrity. And they don't even act like this is something that really bothers her. Because they don't...
It should. If you put her on a pedestal, show how much this will annoy her.
Well, and this is the thing that she hated, and there's no commentary. She is, like, stressed by the responsibility of becoming a maiden, because they say that if they give her Amber's aura, it might change her personality. So it's like, okay, yeah, but there's no commentary on how this affects her as a person when it comes to being a celebrity. When it becomes to her celebrity status is now
how
meaning...
people treat her.
Yeah, it's now making her become a savior.
How does this make her feel?
Yeah, and it's like, and when she fights Cinder, she gets stomped. It was a terrible fight. She gets stomped. Even though, frankly, considering that she's surrounded by giant pillows of metal, she can literally just crush Cinder over and over until she dies. But no, she doesn't. She literally tries it once, and then she gives up. Like, okay, we've seen her. She has a lot of great power with her semblance, and she doesn't do it.
But no.
No, and then she gets stomped, and then they try to reference the Achilles, because she gets hit in the heel, and she falls down, and then Cinder just stabs her to death with an arrow. And it's like, and one thing I hate, this is related, is that they changed how aura works. Just so that they could kill people off. Because aura makes people more durable. And it's always said that if you have enough aura, you're basically indestructible until you run out of it.
Yep.
But the way they did it is that your aura would break. And they started doing this more and more as the show went on. Is that if a character was supposed to be in danger, their aura would break. It would sort of flash. But it's a Halo overshield. It doesn't work like that. It's like they conflated the concept of creating a shield of aura, which is something you do. They literally show this when they're explaining aura. Ren does it in Volume 1 against the King Taijitu, and then Weiss does it in Volume 2 against the White Fang Lieutenant when he does the attack on her, like with his chainsaw. But then they changed it, like, oh no, the shield is like passive, and it's like a shield around you. Even though Jean said, oh, aura's like a force field, he's supposed to sound stupid in that moment. He's not. That's not exactly right. Because it's always kind of there. And then if you're low on aura, because it would get beaten down, it's kind of like health in a video game, then you can be in serious danger. And then they change it to where there's a moment where your aura, boom, it flashes. Even though we had already seen in Volume 1 and 2 where characters were severely hurt, and there was no flash of aura. And then it's even worse is that they keep changing it. By the end, they actually said that, oh, aura is something you have to turn on yourself. And that's why these characters like Sienna Khan were getting stabbed without fighting, because it's like they had to keep changing this in order to kill people off because they realized they were breaking their own story.
Speaking of dumb deaths,
yeah.
What about other two great characters that should have never been killed in RWBY?
Oh, yeah, Penny,
Salutations!
Yeah, Penny was another great character, and like Pyrrha, it's another thing.
What makes it really dumb is Penny is a robot.
Yeah, and there are so many
You
things...
can bring her back!
There's so many things wrong with this. It's like, okay, first of all, Penny's a robot.
We mentioned K2SO in Rogue One, but there's no way he would have been brought back.
No, not in the hands of the Empire.
You can literally just download Penny to another robot body.
Well,
why is this? What?
Well, and it's not like she was completely obliterated. She was, her limbs were torn off and her body was like torn off, but she still had...
She's not dead. She's just powered down. Just fix her, you nitwit.
It's like they treat it as if, oh, she died. This is permanent. Okay, first of all, her father was super paranoid. Wouldn't he have extra backups? Wouldn't they have, like, you can literally...
You're telling me she is the only robot in this world, the one of her kind, and those limbs, and that's it, and he had no plans, no preparations if she broke down and how to fix her?
He wouldn't even let her go to the beacon dance without literal armed guards because her dad was so paranoid about it. And there was no backup. There was no plan. There was no way that they could say, okay, we have a backup of Penny.
It's almost as this was pulled right out of their buttholes.
Yeah. And here's the thing. Penny has aura. They don't even show her aura breaking because they don't even acknowledge that she has aura. They establish in Volume 2 she's the first robot that has fully functioning aura, which should make her more durable.
No, I was just thinking, if you were going to do that, that's whenever freaking Ruby's eyes should have been set off. When Penny got, like, it was stupid what happened to Penny, but still, that's who... She and Penny were friends.
And Ruby saw Penny's death.
But that doesn't trigger it, but Pyrrha, someone she talked to once did.
Well, yeah, and apparently it's so weird because they tried to make it sound like Penny's death. Oh, look, it's a robot. And everyone's like, this is the worst thing ever. Like, I don't understand how this is supposed to be a secret. Everyone knew that Penny was a robot.
I called it the moment she introduced because she talked weird, and I'm like, she's going to be a robot.
Well, and it's the funny thing.
And it's like, she's a robot, and I'm like, I am so shocked. I didn't see that coming.
Yeah, and it's like, and it's so funny. Like they try to make this some big deception. Like Cinder is like going on the radio. She's like, "Look, they're fighting. Look, Atlas has a robot. You shouldn't trust Atlas." Okay, and literally everyone was trusting Atlas for their robot security. Like literally, like why would they not trust Atlas? Atlas was performing their security detail.
But whatever.
It's and it's one of those things where you have so much stuff that you can do with Penny. There's so much potential with her and like Pyrrha too.
And think about the awesome upgrades you could have given her after she was dismantled for like the next season.
Well, and she could have come if she came back in volume 4. That would have been awesome. It's like because here's the thing is that she's based off of
Pinocchio. Right?
Yeah, yes, she's very heavily based off of Pinocchio, but she's also very clearly inspired by Alyssa Boskanovich from Tekken, another character who is a robot girl who was built by her genius father.
I can see it in the perky robot girl.
Yeah, and here's the thing, like there's a really funny thing, is that in the Tekken Blood Vengeance movie, there's a part where Alyssa is fighting against, she's fighting against, I think it was Kazuya in his devil form.
Yeah.
and she gets torn apart, literally wrecked. So, and then Zhao Yu is like, oh no,
but
Alyssa.
she like takes her head off all the time.
Yeah, well, and she's like, Alyssa, oh no, and then what's his Jin comes in and he's just like, Alyssa, turn back on, and she's like, yes, and she's like missing limbs and stuff, and it's like, and she actually ends up being able to fight back to help because she fights against, I think it was Heihachi, I don't remember, but she ends up firing her rocket arms, and it's like, yeah. She's a robot, of course.
She's not alive, you nitwits.
It's like, when I was watching that, it was so funny because the way I had rewritten Volume 3 of RWBY, where Penny sacrifices herself to try to stop Adam, and it doesn't work, but she blows herself up, and then everyone's sad, and she shows up in the first episode of Volume 4, and she's like, "Hi, I had a backup," and it's like,
she's a robot.
Yeah, and it's like, and it makes sense. It's like, okay, yeah, maybe sad in the moment, but she can come back. And maybe they could say that she didn't have memories of the last few months or something because it was a backup from Atlas. So you can do something, but and what really pisses me off is that in Volume 2, when they first are talking about Penny being a robot, officially, it's like, they make it sound like Penny is going to do these great things. Like, there's so many great potential of her. I think she even says that Ironwood says that she's going to be like very helpful to save the world. So what you think this is going to mean something, but it doesn't. It's like with
subversion.
Yeah, it's like with Pyrrha. It's like, oh, we killed Pyrrha off so that Jean could get character development, but his character stagnates. He hasn't grown since Volume 2. It's like, and this is the thing that really pisses me off. It's like you can't even accomplish this because they don't even mention Pyrrha and Penny all that much. They literally will mention them maybe once, twice this season. And then in Volume 6, they're just like, oh, people complained about that. Here's a statue in another country of her. I'm pretty sure that it's a statue on Atlas, not her home country of Mistral, where they were there for 2 seasons and no one mentioned Pyrrha. It's like, yeah, there's no thought. It's short term. That's all it is. It's short-term gains for long-term losses. And the worst death, I think, in terms of the overall story was Roman.
The best villain.
The best villain. Okay, so here's the thing. Roman Torchwick was never meant to be the big, grand villain of the series. Okay.
But he's the most entertaining thing ever.
And that's the reason why. Because initially, he wasn't even supposed to stick around for much in Volume.
But he's just too cool for school.
Right.
And funny. And
he's so enjoyable. And he's literally the perfect villain for RWBY because he's so goofy and the way he's so card-carrying member of evil.
But he's smart, he's sarcastic, where RWBY, is innocent and childlike and naive.
He's this jaded guy, I don't know, probably in his 20s.
So he would probably, say snide remarks, and then RWBY would, of course, be like, thank you. And it would just be like, I'm insulting you!
Well, and it's really funny. It's like the way he interacted with everyone was so funny. Because like when he fights against Team RWBY and he's leaving and he was like, later everyone, Ice Queen. And then Weiss is like, hey! It's like he's just giving them petty childish insults.
But he's so fun. Like, he really, every time he showed up and I'm like, we're about to have a grand old good time.
Well, and it's funny is that the reason that he stuck around to Volume 3 was because people loved him so much. He was one of the most popular characters. So they kept him around.
And he's quite the dapper dresser.
Yeah, and he's so fun. And he's really fun to see fight, especially because he's got his
cane.
Yeah, and that also shoots exploding bullets.
Of course.
And it's like, okay, and then the way he teams up with Neo, it was great. And Neo was a character that Monty threw in just so that he didn't have to animate.
She's so great playing off him. She's just this mute girl.
And then
and for some reason, they make this fantastic team.
Well, and there's one great scene in Volume 3 where Roman and Neo are fighting RWBY, and they stomp RWBY. Their teamwork is impeccable. And then after that, Neo just RWBY hits her umbrella and she flies off, and then Roman gets swallowed whole out of nowhere, literally out of nowhere, and then it's never mentioned again. It's not until Volume...
Which makes it even funnier because then the Grim immediately gets destroyed then after, and yet for some reason he disappeared with it.
Well, it's like he was swallowed whole. He wasn't eaten.
He wasn't chomped up into little bits.
He was swallowed whole, and then Ruby instantly kicks that Grim. You know, I can't fight without my scythe, but I can kick a gigantic, indestructible griffin in the face and kill it instantly.
So he was alive when it was swallowed,
Right.
and yet somehow, magically, he became a part of that thing, so it died with him?
There's no explanation. It's like, and even then, if he was on top of that airship, it crashed. He was on the middle of a train that crashed headfirst into a concrete wall. He was unconscious at the time, and he walks out only complaining about his hat. When Yang punched the mech he was in so hard that it shattered.
Wouldn't have been so funny as if with Ruby slashes it, and then the whole thing disappeared, and he came back alive, but for some reason the hat disappeared along with the Grim, and he'd been like, you saved me, but you couldn't have saved the hat.
You may as well just let me die. Well, and it would have been funny that if he actually survived that, because it would have actually been in character that if he survived, then he and Neo are just like, later, losers.
Peace out. We're getting out of this show.
It would have been great. It's like, and even then, they actually started delving into his motivation seconds before he died, where he was just like, he didn't work with Cinder because he wanted to, but because if he doesn't, he's very likely going to be killed if he turns on her. Like, oh, something interesting. And
then to make matters worse, they bring Neo back, but it's just like
it's damage control. It's like, and it's literally.
Like, it doesn't have the same magic. I like Neo, but I like Roman too, but I like them better when they're together. Like
right.
they complement each other. Like when they're separate, yeah, sure. Roman can hold a scene his own because he talks. Neo doesn't talk, but see, that's the thing though. Neo doesn't talk.
Yeah.
And it's like, but they're the dynamic duo. They're the perfect team, and it feels wrong having Neo back and not having Roman back.
Well, and it's just
it'd be like having a sandwich.
If you brought in Chaozu without Tien.
It's like having a sandwich that's just peanut butter and no jelly. Well, I'm sorry, some things just belong together.
Well, and here's the thing, is that those were the two best villains the show has produced. Every other villain has been just okay at best, or if not terrible. Like, Mercury and Emerald, alright, they have potential of being good.
They're okay.
Cinder, terrible. Salem, terrible. Jared Leto, Tyrion. He was one of the worst. I hate when people say, he's the best villain. He is the worst villain in the show.
He is not interesting.
He is terrible. He is annoying. Then you have Watts, who's... Watts is eh. Then you have, Deep Voice. Hazel. It's like, okay.
Honestly, that's not even memorable.
Well, yeah, and then it's like Hazel was only memorable because he was quiet, he didn't talk. And then in Volume 5, he turns into a screeching banshee, and he's like, I'm going to kill children because my sister died fighting Grim. I'm blaming Ozpin. You're killing children. So to prove how wrong you are, I'm going to kill these children. What? Yeah, it's like, yeah, they screwed it up. And it's like, and no villain they've introduced since has been any good. Like, all of them have been terrible. I mean,
but let's kill the interesting characters.
Yeah, let's introduce Sienna Khan as a primary member of the White Fang, who might actually be an interesting character who has Selkin. Oh, nope, she's dead. Well, that lasted all of 5 minutes. It's like,
alright,
well,
cool.
it's like
that's how you want to do it.
Well, it's like they were so focused on Cinder is our main villain. Here's Salem, our main villain.
Nobody cares. Bring back Roman.
It's like Roman was popular for a reason. Even after years of being ignored in the show, he is still one of the most popular characters. It's like, and I'm not saying that you can...
Because he has charisma.
He's the only villain who has charisma.
Cinder has the personality of, well, as you put it, a cinder block.
It's like, I'm not saying you can never ever kill a character that's popular. And we talked about Mace Hughes. But with Roman, he's the only villain that they had going for them. And they get rid of him. Because they
wanted their more serious, bland villains.
Yeah, it's like... And here's the thing. And this is the whole thing of talking about with the way Pyrrha died, with the way Penny died, and the way Roman died. Because I mentioned this with you before, but when I asked you... When you were watching RWBY's Volume 1 and 2, did you ever get the feeling like they would just start killing off characters?
It didn't feel like that kind of show.
No, it's like when you watch the first 2 episodes of Gurren Lagann. Would you say, oh yeah, obviously they'll kill off members of the main cast?
Yeah, the show that's literally powered on manliness.
Yeah, it's like, no, it doesn't make sense. It's not what the show is built for. Regardless of what they wanted the show to be some serious Game of Thrones, Walking Dead, who will die next kind of a...
Except you have an entire episode that starts off with, you know, people having ridiculous, crazy, over-the-top Dragon Ball Z style fights in the cafeteria with food.
The food fight in Volume 1, it's like, it's the big final act of Episode 1 of Volume 2. It
is the most stupidest fight scene ever, but it's so wonderful and enjoyable.
It's awesome. It's like, okay, yeah, that's the kind of thing. And literally, the next episode, Yang makes a "you activated my trap card" meme joke. It's like, okay,
it's silly and it's fun.
You can have some serious stuff, like when Yang talks about how she and Ruby almost died, and it was their Uncle Crow who saved them in Episode 6 of Volume 2. It's like, okay, that's good, because there's some serious stuff going on, but the show doesn't delve deep into that and go grimdark. And that's
like,
what Volume 3...
You know, shows like Avatar.
Yeah.
It can be wacky, goofy, fun, but also there are serious things like, oh, I don't know, Aang's entire culture was genocided.
Oh yeah, fascism.
Like, there's some serious stuff on the horizon, but it kind of balanced itself.
It was,
and it was a kid's show.
And it had a good tone, and this is the problem, that killing off characters like that in a show that is overall fairly lighthearted.
At least, like, I don't know, build it up. That was not built up.
Well, and even
and people are like, but you, like, stopped watching. I went back and looked into it. I researched it, and I watched clips, and I'm just like, eh. And then I started reading all the polarizing opinions to get everyone's opinions and see what they felt, and I came out of it feeling, yeah, I'm still not going to watch the rest of RWBY. This blows by. Peace out.
Well, it's like, you know, it's like ever since Volume 3 came in, it's like, yeah, Volume 3 was terrible. Like, a lot of people like to think that it was good because it got grimdark. And I'm like, there were a lot of people who wanted the show to be grimdark, but that's not what the show was.
Grimdark is overrated.
Yeah, it's like some people were like, oh, the Vital Festival was bad, but it gets good at the end of the season. No. It actually, that was one of the worst parts of the show. Like, Volume 3, I might say, might still be a contender for the worst volume the show has had. Even with Volumes 5 and 6, it might still be the worst just because of how badly it destroyed the entire show. From its lore, to the characters, to its stupid grimdark deaths. It's like...
Arguments could be made.
Arguments could be made. It's like... And killing off these characters in a show that doesn't support it. It's like, don't do it.
Pick a tone.
Pick a tone. It's like, and this is the problem, is that you can have a show that has characters die, and even it can be lighthearted. Steins Gate actually does that. I mean, even though it's time travel and a lot of stuff ends up getting reversed, it's like, you have a series where people...
Full Metal Alchemist.
Full Metal Alchemist. There are some hilariously goofy things, and people die.
Full Metal Alchemist gets really serious at times.
Yeah.
But it also can be really funny.
It's like, and it's very, there's a balance in the tones. It's like, when you do a tone shift, it can't just be a hard veering to the left. It has to be a, okay, no.
Gradual.
Right, it's because...
I mean, granted, yes, there can be some veering to the left. That has happened in the story, but it's gotta make sense. Like, I don't know, like, take some care.
Yeah, like, this is an art. It's not an exact science. There is an art to this. And authors like Arakawa understand this. Miles and Carey with RWBY, they don't understand this. And I wouldn't hold this against them if they had tried. Like, after writing a show for 6 years...
Well, I mean, if they at least admitted...
If they admitted, we screwed up and we didn't really know what we were doing.
Or like, we feel lost without Monty, but we're trying our hardest.
Well, it's like, they'll say stuff like that, but then they never fix it.
But then turning around and also insulting your fan base is little ill-will.
Yeah, and then they desperately try to appease this stuff, like in Volume 6. It's like, oh, guys, by the way, Crow's alcoholism is now a serious issue, even though we've been making jokes about it since Volume 3. Oh.
Yeah, only now.
Oh, it's like, now.
Little late.
Yeah.
Little late.
Well, and it's like, you know, the fact that they finally acknowledged, hey guys, Pyrrha's a celebrity. Oh, yeah, I'm glad you finally acknowledged that a celebrity dying would actually be a big event.
Whatever.
Oops.
Who cares?
It's like, and this is, like I said, it was short-term gains.
If you want to see more, he's got whole stuff on
I've got
RWBY.
multiple videos on RWBY. I even have videos of rewriting it.
He's got lots of stuff on RWBY.
I have a lot of... and here's the thing. I rewrite RWBY.
He likes RWBY.
I love it. I love the characters. I love the story. I love the world. There's so much potential in it.
The fight scenes, at least the ones in the first 2 seasons, are fantastic.
It's like, yes, I love it. And I wrote up to 12 volumes of it because I love it so much. I came up with an entirely new lore because I love it so much. This criticism isn't done out of a place of hatred.
If someone genuinely hated it, as in they abhor everything about the franchise, then they wouldn't touch it.
No.
There's some people who I hate this thing, so I refuse to watch this thing, but they refuse to watch all parts of it. I know somebody who genuinely doesn't like Star Wars, in general. So you know what they do? They don't watch any Star Wars movies. They don't talk anything about Star Wars, because it's not their thing.
Yeah.
If someone genuinely, is criticism, it's not it's because that they want to see improvements, because they see that there is potential in there, and they want to see it flourish, to see it grow, to see it succeed.
I really wanted
not to see it fail.
It's
they want to see it succeed.
I wanted RWBY to succeed, but he didn't. And it's calling it out for being crap isn't saying I hated RWBY all the time and I wanted it to fail since the beginning. No. I mean, I came into RWBY late. I came into it after Volume 4, right after Volume 4 came out, around that time. So it's not like I was there at the beginning hating it. I was actually excited for RWBY when it was initially announced, because I was watching Red vs. Blue and I saw them announce the new series by Monty Ohm.
An original.
Yeah. It's there's so much. And this is why I like the phrase that I think Shane did in his letter of carry the torch. It's yeah, we all carry the torch that Monty bore. It's he affected so many people. He inspired so many people. It's I want to carry the torch. It's why I rewrote it. It's why I made videos on it. It's why
Yes, there's a spark there.
Yeah.
And there's a spark in other series that...
Yeah. Well, it's a lot of these other things that have badly written. I've rewritten Code Geass. I even did an abridged rewrite thing, which was funny.
We had our conversations of how many different ways we could handle Code Geass, and we came up with so many different scenarios, and we were talking for 3 hours about just Code Geass and how you could rework it, and different ways you could rework it, because there's so many different roads you can take with a lot of these shows. What's next on the list, for example?
There's Trollhunters.
I actually want to watch that, so for the sake of spoilers, I will step out of the room.
Yeah, so... Okay. So, to talk about Trollhunters real quick. Trollhunters is a show that I actually thought started off really good. The first season was great. The second season was pretty good. Until you got to the end. Okay, the whole trial storyline was interesting and all. But I started spotting some real big issues about that storyline when there was all this build-up to try to help Jim in that storyline, only for it to not mean anything. And then Vendel is killed. Literally just out of nowhere, shock death. And then what does it matter? Actually, it means absolutely nothing. So you had a character who wasn't kind of against Jim at first, and then he's killed off. And even, it's not like his death was there to warn anyone of what was going on. They still end up losing the city. His death is ultimately meaningless. It doesn't mean anything. A character, I actually grew to really like, when he's killed off for no reason. And that's not even the worst thing that happens in the show. By the time you get to season 3, particularly once you get to the end of season 3, it takes a nosedive into some of the absolute garbage tier fan fiction. But it's okay, but you have this Vendel, this character, this elder, this guy who's been a mentor to help Jim. It's a guy who came around to accepting a human troll hunter. Oh, well, I guess he's not really that important, guys. You shouldn't really care about his character. And it was stupid, and it pissed me off. And it's really? And even his death, he was trying to... It could have been used to warn of something bigger going on, but no, they end up losing, and it doesn't mean anything. So all that work for the trial just comes to an abrupt end, and it's just well, I guess using it for some jokes, I'm sure that was all we really needed. because it's over, and then they lose. Yay. Another thing that pissed me off was Drawl's death. A character who hated Jim the most, who felt like it was his role to be the troll hunter, because his father was the last troll hunter, who hated Jim at first, but ultimately ended up coming to respect him, to become his ally, and to become his friend. And when he was going to sacrifice himself before, and he lost his arm, it was a great subversion, because I thought they were going to kill him off, but only it turns out he lost his arm and had to get a robotic replacement. Alright, that's cool. You know, there was a consequence, but it was showing his dedication to help Jim and just how much he had changed. And then there was some stupid stuff, but then in Season 3, when they're trying to get Merlin's staff, and they're fighting, and then he just ends up sacrificing himself fully. Like, they actually do it. He sacrifices himself. And it doesn't really mean anything because that guy he was fighting still stuck around. So he died. Another character who actually had great character development and a very likable character dies for no reason. And I don't even understand what the point of this was. There's a lot of stupid stuff that happens as the show reaches the end. But it's like, okay, why would you bother with that? Why would you kill them off? These are characters that I actually really like. And what do their deaths accomplish? Literally nothing. It means nothing to the story. It doesn't affect it. It doesn't improve anything. It doesn't set into motion anything important. In all honesty, if these characters stuck around, the show would be better for it. And it's one of the things that really pissed me off. And by the time you get to the ending of Trollhunters, I was freaking sick of the show. There were some good parts in Season 3, but oh my gosh, by the time you get to the last few episodes, I literally couldn't finish the show because it got so garbage. It was so terrible by the end. Again, I wanted to keep this short so that Adrian isn't stuck out there for too long. Aaron, I'm done! Alright. So the next one I wanted to talk about is actually Borderlands. So, Borderlands 2 is overall a really great game. I actually quite enjoy Borderlands 2. I played it multiple times. Here's the thing. A story that's overall pretty goofy and wacky and zany, with a completely narcissistic main villain who's a crazy CEO of an evil corporation, a total just absolute goofball who thinks he's the most handsome guy ever, who calls himself Handsome Jack.
And he's voiced by Cell from Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah, that's the funny thing. It's like this game that has so many like funny jokes in it, and then when you get to the end, characters start getting killed. It's like once they killed off Bloodwing, like Mordecai's bird, which is a character that I really like Bloodwing because you play Borderlands 1, and I played as Mordecai, and Bloodwing is his like special ability. He can go out and attack people. Oh, and then they kill off Bloodwing in Borderlands 2 for no reason. Literally, Jack admits that he killed it for no reason other than just to piss them off. Okay? And it's like, and it was like they were trying, I felt like they were trying to raise the stakes, like, oh, you need to really hate Jack. Yeah, Jack tries to kill you at the beginning of the game. That's your motivation to kill Jack. He's also in...
You need extra motivation.
Yeah, it's like, he tried to kill you. He's trying to kill everyone that you care about and everyone that you work with. He's trying to enslave the entire population or murder everyone.
No. See, that's not enough. You clearly need extra motivation.
Ah, right, of course. Jack wasn't evil when he was committing mass genocide.
Of course not.
No. It was the fact that he killed someone's pet bird that's really what needed. And then you get to the end. Yeah. Then you get to the end where you meet Angel, a character from the first game who was this disembodied voice. Seemingly a mythical creature, and you find out it's actually a person. Jack's daughter, actually, who's another one of the sirens, who was using her powers all this time. Like, oh, okay, so she wants to help you fight against Jack. All right, cool. You get her, you release her, and then she dies immediately afterwards.
Sounds bad.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay, this is a character that you see in the first game, you see in the second game. She's forced to fight against you because of Jack, and then she ends up helping you. And it's like, okay, cool. And she'd been suffering for years under Jack, literally spending years being like pumped full of the iridium minerals to power her siren powers up. Literally kept on like a tube of just being pumped into her. And then she dies. And you know what I really hate this is that you see this a lot with these things. And you see it a lot with characters like Pyrrha too. It's like their entire character life, their story can be boiled down to they suffer and then they die. And then that's it. Like, I want to help
Deal
Angel.
with it, I guess.
It's like Angel's been suffering so much. And you get tapes, like holotapes of her interacting with Jack when she was a kid. And you find out that he had been abusing her whole life. Taking advantage of her powers, researching her, and experimenting on her. And what? Am I supposed to, like, be okay with her dying? It's like, couldn't they rescue her and take her in so that the people that she had been manipulating before finally take her in and give her the family that she never had? No. She dies. And then Roland dies immediately after that. A character from the first game, a playable character from the first game. Who actually, like, I didn't think he had much personality, but I really liked him in Borderlands 2. And I liked his relationship with Lilith. I thought it would be random at first, but seeing them interact, I really liked it in the way they built their personalities in the second game. And then he's killed off for no reason. What makes this even worse is that there's a literal in-universe regen system. There's literal respawns. They're called new U-stations. In the beginning of the first game, you literally, in the story, you go and sign up in the new U-station so that it has your DNA, so that when you die, you get respawned. And what really is stupid is that there were dummied out audio files of Angel saying that the way they'll kill Jack is that she'll lock out the new U-station so that he wouldn't come back. So that it was already part of the story. It was literally saying, okay, it's like, when he dies, we'll lock him out of the new U-station system because she had connections to all the computers. And that makes sense. That's something that makes sense. Okay, that's the only way you could really kill him. But then Anthony Birch, in his infinite wisdom as a complete moron...
Because we know he's infinite wisdom.
Yeah. Oof. But... It's like, then he outright admitted that he wanted to be taken more seriously as a writer because he normally did comedy. This is actually why I invented the term the Birch solution, where you have people who are more good at sort of lighthearted or comedy writing, and they want to be taken seriously, so they just do...
Treat me like I'm an adult,
so they do grimdark stuff. They just murder characters, and they just do horribly dark things.
The most childish way of wanting to be seen as I'm an adult.
Yeah, it's childish, and it's this... And all it does is screw the story up. The darkest parts of Borderlands 2 are the worst parts because it completely misses the point. It feels so... It's insulting, really, because you watch this and you're like, okay, so what am I supposed to get from this? A series that made goofy jokes. And a series that has made all your base are belong to us jokes. Literally, DLC, the Nox DLC in Borderlands 1, there's literally an all your base belong to Athena mission. It's like, it makes meme jokes. There's a Kenny Loggins joke in Borderlands 2.
Yeah.
There's one of my favorite side missions in Borderlands 2 is this guy named Face McShooty. And he literally, you go up to him and he's like, shoot me in the face. If you shoot him in the face, you get money. And he goes, thank you. It was hilarious. This is the same story that wants it to be taken ultra seriously at times. You can't swing that hard back and forth. You can't go...
Create a new story.
Yeah, it's like create a new story. It's like the plot of Borderlands 2 is...
Take chances.
Yeah, the plot of Borderlands 2 is interesting. But when they crowbar in these really horrible grims... Oh. It's like there's a part where... Like, I found out the backstory of why the character Brick wasn't part of the main group anymore. And when the city of Old Haven was attacked... Or not Old Haven. New Haven was attacked. And it's like, okay, they found out that this one guy was a traitor. And I played Borderlands 1. He's literally just some random NPC. Apparently he knew the codes, or he knew how to... I don't know, it was stupid. But then Brick crushes that guy's skull. And it was like, Roland kicks him out. I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. When I found out, I'm like, that's a really way too dark for this. It's like, we like Brick. Brick's funny. He's the stupid big lug. He's the Hulk smash guy. And you have this really dark story where he brutally murders, and it's not even like it was a bandit. Like, they kill bandits all the time because they're psychos. But it's like, but this is just another normal guy. It just, stuff like that in Borderlands 2 is terrible. And it's insulting, to be perfectly honest, to be so into a game that you're like, and into a story that it's like generally lighthearted. The bad guy tried to kill you by blowing up a gigantic train, and literally had a sign that said "No hard feelings" as you're in a cart full of dynamite, and it's like, yeah, this is the story you're supposed to take ultra seriously, where characters die. Again,
the adult version.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, but then this screws up the stories for later on because you're killing off these characters and they're trying to work from this really dark story. It's like, it doesn't work. And that's why in Tales from the Borderland, the episode 1 is amazing because it's lighthearted, it's goofy. You're a businessman who tries to go down to Pandora where heathens and murderers are, and you're just like, hi guys, you're just like nerdy Ned there, just trying to fit in, and it's like, that's funny. And then that's why the story for episodes 2 through 5 were utter garbage. It's like, okay, it's trying to take itself so seriously now. You can't do that. You had Patrick Warburton as a primary antagonist. And when you have Patrick Warburton, you can't take that too seriously. Oh no, but then they tried to make you take it really seriously.
I'm sorry, but all you're going to hear is Kronk from Emperor's New Groove.
Exactly. But it's like, and that's the thing. It's like, you can't do that. And you have to be aware of the story that you're writing. You could have dark stuff. Tannis' backstory in Borderlands 1 is dark because she was part of a research team that went to Pandora. They lost any kind of connections to their funding corporation, and then everyone around her were killed by the monsters while she was left alone for months going crazy. And then you find her and she's a little loopy. It's like, okay, that's a sad backstory, but it's a minor part. And Borderlands 2 is very much pushing towards the more comedic aspects, which I think really lends well to it because it makes it a lot more fun than Borderlands 1. It really, really cranked up on the goofiness, and it's like, okay, but then we're also making these characters, we're going to kill them off. It's like Guardians of the Galaxy 2 in a way.
Yeah,
because
huge tonal inconsistency.
It's like, here, we're going to crank up all the goofy, funny stuff.
All right.
And
it's really funny.
And then you're like, okay, then there's this dark, grim, people die.
It's like, and you just see a cave filled with skulls, and you realize those were skulls of children.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and this is the same movie where we're having
Taserface.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
They were so, and the jokes, super funny. Oh man, the comedy was top notch.
And then you get to see the other Ravagers suffocate in the deep space as their corpses float around.
It's like, huh.
Oh.
Can we go back to laughing at Baby Groot dancing while they're all fighting a giant worm monster thingy, whatever that was? No? Okay, never mind.
Oh, there's another character that I forgot to mention this to you before. Allura. There's a lot to talk about, and we're not going to go into all the issues with what happened.
Because I actually watched season 8.
Yeah, Voltron season 8 had some stupid stuff, but it's like yeah, but killing off Allura at the end of the show, it's like, and very simply, this is something that I would say, you have a character who has so much potential, who has so much to live for, and then...
Well, see, the thing is, if somebody tries to defend it, it had to happen, that sacrifice had to be made, but why? You're the writer, you write the laws of the universe. Really? Because from how fast the pacing was in that season 8, I could reasonably believe that just Honerva sacrificing herself was all that was needed, or Honerva and then the spirits of the old paladins and Zarkon's spirit was all that was needed. Why did Allura herself also have to stay behind? That makes no sense to me.
Well, and when I was...
It's just there to do just like with Nia and Ashi. Just to give Lance some sad, oh, my girlfriend's dead, so we can have a bittersweet sheep ending.
Yeah, because we need to have extra emotions after all the people who die.
It's just you mean after all the emotional roller coasters? Why?
Well, it's and you have the whole, all of the other...
And why can't they just have happy endings, after all the trials and tribulations that these heroes go through? I don't even like Lance and Allura as a couple, but Why can't they just live together happily ever after? What's wrong with that?
And you have all these other Altans from the colony.
Like, the potential of, like, you know...
Why can't Allura leave them? Because they...
What makes it even more stupid is the fact that they decided to rewrite reality so that way Altea never went kaboom. So the planet never went kaboom, but their king of old is dead, and his only heir is now dead. So there's no royal family. So what's the point of doing that? Like, if Onerva and the Paladins of Old did that, granted, I still say it would have been more meaningful because of the fact that they found some surviving Alteans. Don't bring back Altea! That makes, like, all of Allura's hardships meaningless, and then the fact that she dies, it makes it even dumber. Like, just like, why not have her and the surviving members decide to settle down on a new planet and try to
rebuild Altea.
Rebuild their own community. Allura can teach them the old ways, and they can teach her their new ways, and they can form a new culture around that.
Yeah. Well, and after all that her and Karan lost, don't they deserve that? Especially
and the fact that Karan was robbed a chance at saying goodbye.
Yeah, Karan, the guy who was like, as Allura admitted,
her own words, a second father to her.
Oh yeah,
he doesn't get to say goodbye to her.
Oh no, we have to make sure that Lance gets his big goodbye with her because Lance is the most important person in Allura's life.
Despite the fact that they literally became a couple, like, literally last season, even though that it happened out of nowhere. Okay, not for Lance. Lance has always had a thing for her, and that gradually went from a crush to a genuine, like, in love with her. That's true. I agree. But it was just dumb.
There was just a sudden turnaround, like, there was a switch flipped for Allura.
It was just dumb. The whole way it was handled dumb. Like, if you're gonna make them a couple, then just make them a couple. Don't kill Allura off so Lance can have it. And I hate this phrase, and it's sadly true, but it was just given to give him man pain. And I hate that phrase. I really hate that phrase.
It's used to really devalue a lot of, like, actual...
Like, genuine, like, sad, tragic, like, deaths of, like, female characters, like, in a male character's life. Like, but that's actually impactful to the story. Like, it actually has an impact. And to just devalue it, to just say, oh, he's having man pain, to just, like that's what
it's generally a really bad
It's in bad taste to just do that, to claim that it's something political when it's not. It's like it's called a tragedy, but this wasn't. This just felt like
this is literally just
contrived.
Cheap. Yeah,
it's just contrived, cheap, sad pain. And I only use the term man pain just because of, like, if Lance was a girl and Allura was a boy, it would be just as cheap and contrived. It's just a word. I hate the word. But
I think it should only be used for them genuinely contrived bullcrap.
Yeah, like, it's a contrived thing. And, like, just like Ashi's death, that was contrived. And Nia's death at the end, it's contrived. It's just there just so you can have the random out of nowhere, in the end, bittersweet ending. Like, that was completely unnecessary. And the writers didn't have to put it in there, but they decided to put it in there because they wanted that cheap, bittersweet ending.
And it really pisses me off because Voltron, Legendary Defender,
was consistently a good show.
A good show, and it had good deaths like Ulaz. When Ulaz sacrificed himself to save Team Voltron, it's like, that was a great moment. It served the story. Ulaz was just a minor character, but you had that. It really brought up a lot of issues, like particularly between Allura and Keith,
and the rest of the Gara.
Yeah, they would argue over, like, what does it really mean, like, that Agalra sacrificed himself for us?
Well, there was one good death in season 8 that I thought that was genuinely good. The one Alkari that Pidge bonded with.
Oh yeah, the old lady.
The old lady. So even though you didn't get to see the rest of the Alkari for the rest of the season, their planet died because of Onerva ensured that happened. But she stayed behind long enough to the very bitter last, just to make sure she could get every last one of her people out of there. Because so long as her people lived on, she knew their ways would never die and their knowledge, because they are, like, some of the smartest race of aliens in the universe. So as long as her people survived, she knew that their knowledge and their customs and their culture will never die. And so she stayed behind, but she still left behind, like, a message so that Pidge could hear it. Because she knew, like, in her heart that the Voltron would try to come to save them, even if they wouldn't make it in time. So that way she could impart some of her last bits of wisdom onto Pidge. And it was genuinely tear-jerking. Because even though you've only got to know this character for one episode, you know how much they meant to Pidge and how much of an inspiration they were to Pidge, because she would occasionally mention how much she liked the Yulkari and stuff like that and what geniuses they were. So it was genuinely sad, and it genuinely made you feel something. And then they did that with Allura. So I was just like, oh.
Well, and as you were saying, it very much built up the idea of the old guard, dying and passing it to the new generation.
That's what like her theme was, where she says the old, like, because when she's like Pidge sees this hologram or something like that in a way, I don't know what it's called, or maybe it's a projection in her mind that was put in her mind, because that's how the Yulkari use their science magic thingy, whatever. Whatever. But Pidge then sees her hug this child, because then the child's just like basically begging her to come with them. And she knew she couldn't because she had to stay behind so that all the people escape. And she says, like, it's the old must give way to the new, where she's just like, I'm old, I'm going to die, but I must do this so that way your generation can live on. And that way, in a way, her memory can still be immortalized so long as the ones that she taught can pass on what they've learned.
And it really...
And it was, in a way, even though she was talking to that child, her memory was also telling that to Pidge, that I must do this so that way you can continue to live on the principles that I taught you.
And it really would make more sense if the old paladins and Onurva sacrificed themselves, and then that leaves Allura to carry the torch.
And the new paladins to carry on the torch of King Alfor and the paladins of old.
It's like, and that makes sense, and it feels...
The old gives way to the new, and it would be proper foreshadowing.
Yeah, and it really works, but then it's like, it almost felt like the networks were like, no, kill off Allura. That's like...
Make it sad, and she'll have a statue in her honor. Okay, guys, you do realize that Princess Yue died early on in the season in Avatar, and you're just you're trying to literally rip off the same whole white-haired, dark-skinned, beautiful princess dies
with Space Sokka.
Yeah, with Space Sokka. That felt.
It's like it really felt like they were trying to copy that. And it's like, oh.
Except you did that in the very last season, where Sokka met Yue. The very first season, they had a thing, but then she died. But it forever affected Sokka's character, and it helped him grow, and it's how he got closer to Suki, and yeah.
This is the same thing about the whole ripping off Lion King with How to Train Your Dragon.
It's like you look at a good source, but you don't understand what made that work.
Yeah, and I really don't blame the writers, because I genuinely feel so much of the problems were executive meddling.
There's a lot of problems that people have found were executive mandated, and it doesn't help that a lot of season 8 felt like it had a lot of executive mandating. But
I think there's one more that we had on the list.
Well, but before I get into that, because we actually talked about it briefly beforehand, some other great character deaths, some of the most famous examples of it always come to mind. One of them is Lord of the Rings. Another one is Star Wars. Good ones. Obi-Wan, great heroic sacrifice, inspired Luke.
Even Mace Windu's death in episode 3, because it's sad, but it really shows just how far Anakin had fallen.
Well, yeah, and a lot of stuff in Revenge of the Sith. Padme's death is very Shakespearean in a way.
Oh, very much so.
And sure, some of the writing is clunky around it, and I think they needed to just rework the dialogue rather than give people the impression that she legit did die of a broken heart when she didn't. But like that dialogue needed to be rewritten a bit. Granted, people, that was a Padme's line of "You're breaking my heart," not that she actually died of a broken heart.
Yeah.
But whatever, like that needed to be like the dialogue needs some work, but overall it felt very Shakespearean, and I had no problems with it. It's a very Shakespearean thing of the mother of the tragically dies, but the children live on, in secret, so that like the evil forces can't get their hands on them.
And it feels very classic adventure. Very,
very classic epic tales, very Shakespearean, and almost biblical in a way.
Yeah.
And there's just a lot of good deaths in Star Wars. Yoda's, even though it's sad, it felt very poignant when he faded away like that.
Yeah.
And to give on his final message to Luke. And like a lot of things like about that was just really, really well done. Shmi's death, like I will never get over. Like people can criticize Attack of the Clones all they want, but nobody can tell me that Shmi's death was not well done. Like her actress did such a good job of a woman just clinging on to life, being happy, reunited with her son.
And the fact that she's trying to get her last words out, but she can't.
But she can't. And she's trying to say, I love you, but she's just stuck, and then she just passes in his arms, and just to see his reaction, and the very first spark of his descent into the dark side. He didn't fully go there yet, but he tasted that. He played with it a little bit. And just to see just a glimmer of the horrifying person he's eventually going to become. It was very well handled.
And then eventually Vader's death and his heroic sacrifice to save Luke. Something that was really built up over the course of the original trilogy, and it was a culmination of Luke's arc of trying to save his father.
Honestly, whenever I think of a redemption death, the very first always that comes to my mind is Darth Vader. Granted, it's technically not a redeem, but it kind of technically is. But it's so iconic, that whole scene. It's timeless. There isn't a soul alive. You can introduce it to generation after generation after generation, and everybody seems to be affected by that. Maybe because, I don't know, it's well written. It's really good. It grabs at so many people. It's why Return of the Jedi is actually my favorite Star Wars movie. So much about that movie. But Luke and Vader and their whole central conflict, and how it just finally comes to a close, and that moment it's just perfect for me. I know technically Empire Strikes Back is the better objectively written movie. Personally,
But you got so many of the emotions and the closure in Return of the Jedi.
But emotionally, Return of the Jedi is... I have so much investment in it emotionally. And, and of course, it concludes everything. It wraps it up in a nice, neat little bow, and then Disney came along and ruined everything.
Speaking of a terrible redemption death, let's finish this off with...
Well, I was saying Star Wars also. Terrible deaths. Even when we thought we liked The Force Awakens.
Oh, I never liked The Force Awakens.
No, when we thought we did. Remember when we thought it was a good movie?
When we thought it wasn't that bad, right?
We were in denial, but we were still what our biggest thing was
Han Solo's death.
That was just
It was stupid. It was pointless. It didn't mean anything. It was literally, he was just walked up as a lamb to the slaughter for no reason other than the fact that Harrison Ford wanted Han to die. And it's just no.
Well, and they wanted to get their little, remember
it's
the old guy?
It's
No.
like Obi-Wan, right?
No.
Well, and it's everything about Kylo Ren is stupid. And then Han Solo.
You have him killed by this punk AB?
Yeah.
Who weighs 10 pounds soaking wet?
It's this loser character, one of the worst characters in the entirety of the new Star Wars.
Just kill me.
It's oh yeah, he dies. And then Han Solo is basically just forgotten after that. They kind of mention him a couple times, but it's it never really means anything.
Oh, and you don't even get the dignity of letting Luke mourn him because
they cut it out in a deleted scene.
Just oh, that's wonderful. And you couldn't even let... Even Mark Hamill's why couldn't Luke and Leia be there? If you can't let them have a reunion, then have them there to see Han get cut down. Because if that means something to them, sure, okay, that means something to Chewie, but that's the only person there who really... Rey and Finn just met him.
Yeah, and then they try to make it sound like he was so important to Rey. She knew him for a day.
Really, more 8 hours.
Yeah. Well, it was stupid. And then, of course, Luke...
Oh my gosh. Okay, as crappily as they treated Han Solo...
At least he got to do stuff.
And
he was firing his blaster and fighting stormtroopers.
Hey, at least he was there and physically present when he died. Oh no, we're just gonna make Luke this grumpy, angry, awful, horrible coward? And he's not even there when he dies?
It's he could, if he was going to die, then why didn't they just have him show up on Crate?
If they're well, it's too dangerous to go to Crate, he could die. He died anyway!
It's in this idea that the Force overwhelmed... Oh yeah, the son of freaking Anakin Skywalker, one of the most powerful Force users, and...
Well, if his sister can survive in space for no reason, then somebody who's trained for years maybe could survive this. Oh, but see, the movie set up that this could kill you.
No, they didn't.
Well, they technically did. Kylo did have one throwaway line whenever he thought that when their whole little forced Skype call, that it was Rey's doing, and he was just like, how is this possible that you can communicate to me so far? Like, abilities like this could kill you. And I'm just like, ooh, references. Yeah, and somehow, it was just stupid. It was just disrespectful, and the only reason they did it is because they wanted that shot of the twin sons for being the last thing that Luke sees. Fine, that would have been poignant in a completely different movie, in a much better movie, and probably a third movie in the trilogy, because if you're supposed to kill off the original trilogy characters, you don't do it in the first and second movie, and now that Carrie Fisher's gone, you might as well kill her off in the next movie too, which is what they'll probably do along with Lando.
Yeah, so then we're going to...
Because they don't respect them. They don't respect the characters where they came from.
They think that as long as they're there at all, then they can just... then people will love it. I'm like, you already proved that's not right with The Last Jedi. I mean, people for some reason ignored Han's death when that came out, and then it was only after The Last Jedi where I see people go, oh, that was bad.
Yeah,
no duh.
It was. It was very bad.
It took you a couple of years, didn't it?
But you know what? It's okay. Sometimes people are a little...
A lot of people were still riding on the hype train with The Force Awakens.
I mean, it took me a while to realize, granted not as long as everybody else, but I was in denial for a while, and slowly but surely I realized, Force Awakens is actually not good, and I'm just lying to myself.
Yeah.
But, it's so disrespectful to everything that came before it. And, like, and Darth Vader's not the only good heroic sacrifice, going back to, like, good heroic sacrifices and good redemption deaths, because there are some really good redemption deaths, like thinking of Shmi, because that made me think of actually before that, because I was thinking of a redemption death, Spider-Man 2, but I was actually thinking, no, Spider-Man 1, that's another good, like Uncle Ben's death in the Sam Raimi's movie, incredibly iconic. Nobody could ever replicate that.
Oh, no, it's like, regardless of what anyone thinks about the Sam Raimi movies, the first movie, the way Uncle Ben dies, the way it's set up, was so masterfully done. It is the best...
That's another really good superhero origin movie. It's perfectly paced.
It's the definitive death for Uncle Ben. Period. Like, I don't care what...
Nobody's ever really replicated that good. I don't even think I've gone back and read the comics, and not even the comics feels that good. I mean, heck, I'll even hear... Like, I can't even remember that actor's name, but the actor who played Uncle Ben in the Sam Raimi movie, like, I hear his voice in my mind because it really left such a huge impact on me.
Well, I can always hear the great power comes great responsibility. Remember that, Pete. Remember that. It's like, I remember that, his voice.
It was just, everything about that was paced so well. It was so well done. It was... the whole thing.
Well, the way they set up where you feel so confident with Peter letting that guy run away with the money.
You feel justified.
Yeah, because that guy was such a douchebag. Of course he deserves to lose his money. Only to find out...
screw you!
Yeah, only to find out that you feel the same as Peter when you find out that that guy was the one who killed Uncle Ben.
I mean, the anger, the frustration, the sorrow, the guilt, it just all boils onto these uncontrollable emotions when he goes on that rampage.
Yeah.
And then when he comes home, and then he's just sad and defeated, and like hugging Aunt May, and it was perfect the way that was handled. You can say what you want, but that was so wonderful, like how it was done. But yeah, back to like redemption deaths and
Spider-Man 2.
Spider-Man 2, Doc Ock. Doc Ock was fantastic. Like Spider-Man 2 is amazing. Like it still holds up really well. Like and Alfred Molina is part of that. He was just so good. And
well, he became a definitive look in the way that they wrote Doc Ock. To the point where even in that one, what was it, Universals?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one ride, they changed Doc Ock to look like Spider-Man 2. Mm-hmm. It's like...
He done so well. Like Willem Dafoe as Green Goblin. Like, I can't imagine other actors portraying that character in live action. Like, I'll always see those guys. And it's just, like, he did so well. And, like, whenever, when Peter reached out to him, like, because if he was, like, the machine was, like, the AI was, like, more taking control, and Peter actually managed to, like, reach out to the human in him and reason with him, and then he actually finally, in his dying moments, decided that he was, like, actually, through his willpower alone, controlled the AI of the arms, and decided to destroy the machine and take himself with it. And just that line, "I will not die a monster." I'm just like, oh, that's comic book, but it's also classic. So good. It's so good. And back to Lord of the Rings. Even though it's not a villain per se, but when Boromir essentially betrayed Frodo, and the immense guilt he felt later, and he fought tooth and nail to protect Merry and Pippin, and I'm just still imagining it like in my head because we watched the Lord of the Rings trilogy again.
All
of them, extended edition. Best 2 days of my life, just saying.
Yeah. That was a great 2 whole days.
It was fantastic. I would happily do it again. Such good movies. But it just, the whole thing, and like, he's like fighting so many orcs all on his own, and it's not like 5 of them. It's not like 6 of them. It's not even like 20 of them. There's like, he's like hacking them right down. I'm pretty sure he got down to at least 50 before he started getting stabbed with an arrow. And even then, he was still fighting.
He still had arrows in him while he was fighting.
He's like, had like what, like 4 in him or something?
4 or 5 arrows. And then even then, it still took him a while to die because he died in like, what, Aragorn's arms?
Yeah, he was laying on the ground and Aragorn like gave him his like good word. Like, and it was great because of, even though he had like this semi-rivalry with Aragorn because Aragorn is the true heir to the throne of Gondor. And, you know, his father is the steward of Gondor. But you could tell he respected Aragorn. And to hear the true heir to the throne of Aragorn, like, basically calls him, you know, basically a hero. Like, he gives him, like, a hero's type of, like, goodbye. And so that way Boromir can die in peace. Even though Boromir failed to save Merry and Pippin, he put up the heck of a good fight. And, like... And so you really feel for Boromir in that moment. You don't die being like, serves you right for what she was trying to do to Frodo. You're like, no, like, realize that in the moment it wasn't his fault. He was influenced by the ring. It corrupted his mind. It poisoned him, and he instantly regretted it. And if he had the chance, he would have tried to do things over again, like a good man. And he did die heroic. And it's like, that's why Lord of the Rings is so classic. And it handles like things like death really well in Lord of the Rings. Like, honestly, it's probably why it's still one of the great literatures to this day. Like, fantasy writers will try to duplicate, but they'll never replicate.
Yeah.
Bad character.
Yeah, there's one last one we want to talk about real quick. And this is a little bit different because it's not so much how they died, it's the way that everything was
Well, it's not
framed.
the fact that the character died in itself that's bad.
It's how everything was handled.
It's more of he didn't deserve a redemption death.
Let's talk about Goro.
Goro Akechi. I love Persona 5 a lot. I recently got into it last year.
And we played through it together.
And on my 5th playthrough, I invited him over to play it with me. And we, like, for endless weekends on end, he'd come over and we'd just play for hours and hours and hours until we could finally beat it again. And I started up another play file, 6 play file. I adore the game. It is like... heart eyes, mofo. I am so into it. It is now in my top 5 like favorite video games. Like, because I will play it again and again and again and again and again. And I don't even care if I make the same choices over and over. It is just so wonderful. Akechi's not one of those things.
Akechi is a wart on a beautiful game, and we actually are going to be doing a topic video at some point entirely about
just
Akechi.
on him. He's very bad written character.
Here's the thing. Akechi is a character who suffers from they don't know what they want him to be.
Is he sympathetic? Is he unrepentant? Is he tragic? Is he just an a-hole we shouldn't feel sorry for? We don't know. It keeps flip-flopping.
Because in some cases, he's just so blatantly evil. Like, to the point where they actually reveal that the characters knew that he was bad because he's so blatantly bad.
Well, and then he'll say things like, lines like, I look forward to tearing you limb from limb or to pieces or something like that. And I'm just like, isn't that a chipper?
And then 5 minutes later, they're like, well, he's not really that bad.
Sad. He died. He was just used by his dad. Yeah, the same dad that he approached himself, not that the dad found him. He found him, approached himself. Hey, I have these amazing abilities to murder people with.
And then
great, you're hired.
Shido literally says that. He establishes that Akechi is the one who found him.
He came to him and offered his services
as an assassin.
He He didn't manipulate him to do that. Like, the only thing he really manipulated him was giving him, like, just words of praise to let him know that he didn't suspect that the kid was up to something foul.
Says, but Akechi was trying to manipulate Shido.
Shido knew he was probably, because he's a politician. He's just like, okay.
I don't trust anyone.
Like, either this kid wants dirt, or he's brown nosy. People always want something. He knows never to trust anyone because he's a politician. And there's always an ulterior motive. He knew Akechi had an ulterior motive. Like that, but that's about as far as the manipulation went. Like, and Akechi, the other thing is Akechi showed no remorse for what he did. Now, sometimes they'll say, that's not really your true feelings, are they, Akechi? Really? Because you could have told me otherwise, because we had others, like, literally 2 minutes ago, him ranting and raving how he delights nothing more, and how he fantasized about killing them all. All these people who were supposedly his friends, even though the only one he really interacted with was the protagonist character.
And that's only if
even then, that was really forced of this friendship.
Well, and it's like, on some cases, they'll have him, like, genuinely say things like, oh, maybe we could have been friends or even rivals. Okay. But,
you are giving yourself too much credit.
Well, it's like, but then 5 minutes before that, he was literally gleefully trying to murder
You are addict trash. I hate you.
Well,
you deserve to die.
Well, and then when they were...
it's inconsistent. We'll go more in depth. But, okay, so a character who acts unrepentant, who murdered the father and the mother of 2 characters in the main cast, and this is part of their reason for their motivation for wanting justice, is because of their parents did not deserve that. Like, that was like...
And he's the killer.
He's the killer. And they'd be like, well, okay, somebody else ordered the assassination. He's still the one that pulled the trigger. And
that doesn't absolve him.
And he did it without remorse, and he's done it to I don't know how many people, and he's done this for 2 years. And people have been saying there's all sorts of incidents. And not only that, he's set up these psychotic breakdowns, not just the mental shutdowns where people die, but where he intentionally will go into the people's cognitive worlds, make them go crazy. And so since they go crazy, they're now fabricated frame for crimes they didn't commit, and he gets to solve as the celebrity ace high school detective people that he made them go crazy and commit crimes and frame them for.
And it's like, okay,
but this is somebody I'm supposed to sympathize with, and he gives his sad sobby story out of nowhere.
Oh, you have a bad dad. Okay, guess what? Half the characters here who have
I'm a foster child and horrible daddy issues. Yeah, join the club. So is half the cast, and you don't see anybody else being horrible murderers.
Well, and it's like,
oh, and then after ranting and raving about how he would delight nothing more in killing the characters, and then suddenly the characters all turn a 180 and just be like, you don't really want this, and suddenly there's some evil doppelganger version of himself, despite the fact that he's already an evil little twit himself, and is like, I'm going to kill you, and then I'm going to kill all your friends, and then he decides to heroically force up a wall between him and the protagonist, so that way he will stand by and hold off his evil doppelganger in all the shadows. And now everyone's so sad. Even though 2 minutes ago you were talking about how he's nothing but a temper tantrum throwing child who's pathetic and a twit and evil and irredeemable. But now suddenly, oh, we feel so sorry for you, Akechi.
It doesn't make any sense. Okay.
And then he dies nobly. This was not earned. This was not earned.
It's like, okay, if you want him to be bad but then feel repentant, all right, show him being repentant.
Show him being conflicted, characters like Darth Vader and stuff like that. The best. Darth Vader's one of the best villains.
You see Darth Vader feel bad.
And conflicted. You have him have these quiet moments. And that's just a movie. This is a game. They have even, far longer chances to, evolve this character. And then, of course, the writers admitted that he was kind of a last-minute thing. And I'm like, huh, that makes sense. Because he exactly feels that way.
He feels so forced in, and every time he comes in, it feels so forced in. It's like, okay, if you want him to be sympathetic, make him sympathetic. Make him work for the bad guys, but be forced. If you want to make him unrepentant, make him unrepentant. Make him evil, then have them kill him.
I'm like, if you want a redemption death, make it feel earned. It does not feel earned. Or, I don't know, there's so many different ways, and we'll go more in depth in our other video, but It's just terrible. And there are others, granted, I can't think of, but I'm using Akechi because he's like the most recent example that's in my mind of terrible redemption equal death characters who do not deserve it. Who do not deserve the, oh, what a hero. Like, no. No. It's just like, I don't feel sorry for you at all. I feel nothing but rage. And I just want to snatch that wig.
Yeah.
You fake hoe.
And it's like, he can't, and as a character, he's not even a detective. He's just a fraud. And it's like, okay, but then what am I supposed to like about this guy? Why should I feel sorry for him? Just because you gave him some similarities to Naoto and you gave him her title.
And some similarities to Adachi.
It's like,
you know, two far, vastly superior and likable characters from Persona 4.
Adachi is a literal psychopathic mass murderer. And
but even they knew how to make you feel a little bit pity toward him.
I still feel a pity towards him, at least some pity about his backstory. And
well, I mean, people were like, well, okay, they developed also the fighting games. Okay, but ignore the fighting games about Adachi. Pretend those fighting games didn't exist. Well, okay, one fighting game, because he only appeared in the second fighting game. Like, let's say all you had to go off of was just
Persona 4.
Just Persona 4 in of itself. Adachi is still an unrepentant, irredeemable guy, but at the end of the day, you could still pity him.
And because you understand that he was stuck in a situation very much like you, but instead of being, like, trying to work to better himself...
It's a situation where he kind of, like, he created his own miseries. You can feel sorry for that, because of that could happen to anybody. Like, okay, maybe not becoming a psychopathic murderer, but, like, you know, like, if you stew in your own hatred, you could become a reprehensible person. And he's alone, and, like, it's like, maybe if he had some friends when he was younger... and stuff like that, who knows? His life could have changed and he could have been a better person or something. Who knows?
But he didn't.
But he didn't. That's not how things happen. He became a serial killer, and here's the thing. They all called him out for it, and he went to jail.
They treated him as bad. Especially, I love when I was watching the Persona 4 anime, and they all call him out for the complete loser that he is at the end.
Well, it's funny, because they did the same thing with Akechi. They make those same lines, and then they turn around. I'm like, could you imagine if suddenly the Persona 4 cast is like, well, Adachi had a sad childhood, so I guess it's okay that he's a serial killer and murdered 2 innocent women.
We can just let him go. It's like, it's stupid. And it is totally out of character for the Phantom Thieves. But they have to, it's for, like, I don't know why they did this. They twisted them into forgiving Akechi, even though
who honestly murdered more people than Adachi did, and yet Adachi is the irredeemable one.
Yeah, no kidding.
I mean, he is, but...
Well, and even when Haru's like, it's not that I forgive you, but it was like, okay.
She's like, I still don't forgive you what you did to my father, but I sympathize with you. And I'm like, okay, then why are you delivering it in a tone that you forgive him?
Because it's a very sympathetic tone.
Why does she not sound more angry? This is the person that killed her father. And heck, why did people stop talking about Futaba's mom?
Yeah.
That was...
He's the reason Futaba's mom died.
Like, the only thing they keep mentioning was Haru's father in that scene. Like, how that affected Haru. I'm like, hi, Futaba. Like, okay, yes, Haru had an awful father who was neglectful and was trying to force her into a marriage that would have been honestly, quite frankly, abusive just because it's the son of a politician, and that would have netted him some more goodness in his pocket. But Futaba had a genuinely good mom. And she was murdered simply because Shido wanted her stamped out. So, yeah, you can say, well, yeah, Shido ordered the hit. Shido did order the hit, but Akechi pulled the trigger without hesitation. He, like...
Without remorse.
Somebody who claims about how sad his life is, about the death of his own mother and how that affected him, and yet he willingly murdered a 13-year-old girl's mom. Without hesitation, without regret, without remorse. And I'm supposed to feel sorry for him? When he did this to another child?
It's like, yeah, if this is supposed
He's a gosh dang hypocrite!
And he's not even called out for it. And that's the thing.
And that's what's so frustrating. No, he gets a redeeming death, and we're gonna, like, yeah, we're talking too much about it.
I named you Goro Shido, because you were named after the 2 bravest...
Because we have to go more in depth about it in our
Yeah,
other
because
topic
there's
in
so
future.
much to talk about with Akechi, but I just, talking about bad deaths, it's like, this was definitely a terrible death.
And not in the ways of some of the others, but it made me mad. It made me really mad. I'm like, you did not earn this. You did not deserve this.
I know when we were playing, it's like every time when that scene, we paused it, we were ranting for like half an hour of just how stupid it was.
Just anytime his face came up, but that, I'm just like, get ready, the worst is about to come. But I'm just like, but after that, it's smooth sailing.
Yeah.
then the game's just like amazing. It's just like he wandered from some different game into this game. A terrible game, suddenly in this beautiful, perfect game. I was like, get out of here, you don't belong. This game was perfect, and then you came in.
He doesn't even go here.
He doesn't. Get out. Nobody likes you. Ugh, you horrible Naoto Adachi ripoff. Ugh. Go to jail. You light Yagami ripoff mother effer.
Gosh. He looks like Yagami, and he's just as infuriating as Light Yagami.
But who is worse?
The world may never know.
Alright,
I think that's it.
I think we've exhausted this.
I think we've been going for a few hours at this point.
Probably, because it's 9:48 right now.
Whoops.
Yeah. Alright, I'm angelrin89.
I'm CoolMan229. And
That was this topic. Anyway.
yeah. So, if you want to submit a topic to me, you can either comment below or you can submit a topic to my blog. Just make sure to put topic : then whatever topic you want me to talk about. Just make sure to follow the rules that I'll be posting on my About page. If you want to watch last week's topic video, you can check that out here. If you want to watch next week's topic video, you can check that out here when I get that done. So if there are any deaths you want to talk about, good or bad, please comment below. And thank you for watching.